The Richter scale in Oklahoma shifted a bit with the Thunder title parade. Then Arkansas experienced an earthquake with their top recruit becoming a Cowboy. And today, the tectonic plates shift beneath both states as the top Oklahoma recruit, Tajh Overton, has also become a Cowboy.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All-Day State. Today, we're brought to you by Game Time Tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Get squared away with the best in the ticketing industry, which is Game Time today. Meanwhile, we get to shift into our favorite conversation, which is recruiting. Naturally, we've been discussing how we could potentially take over the state of Oklahoma in recruiting, which by and large has always been designated for OU, if some things have been able to go our way. Thankfully, it started with Katie Batman Jones becoming a Cowboy. Then you get one of the top tackles in the state, Aiden Martin from Berry Hill. Then you get one of the top safeties in the state, and Carter Langendorfer. Then you get the top linebacker in the state, and Trey McLaughlin. So you got number one linebacker, number one running back. What were we missing? Number one defensive lineman in the state, Tajh Overton. But of course, Tajh Overton is one of those individuals that is typically always designated for OU, or at least the equivalency of that in the SEC. Tajh Overton, coming in at 6'3", 275 pounds, is a dominant force that Oklahoma State fans, traditionally speaking, felt like we were going to overlook it or get overlooked somewhere along the process, but not today. Today is the day where Tajh Overton, the number one in-state recruit, decided to become a Cowboy to go alongside the number one running back and Katie Batman Jones and the number one linebacker and Trey McLaughlin. Now all we're missing is a couple other pieces, but we're going to talk about that here in a second. This is a monumental get for Oklahoma State. And, of course, OU fans are already going around saying, much like with the Katie Batman Jones commitment, well, you know, we didn't really necessarily need him. It would have just been cool because his dad was an All-American level dude at OU. So, yeah, I mean, if we don't get him, great. If we do get him, well, that's essentially how the recruiting process went, so they didn't get him. And then they looked at Tajh Overton. Whenever he puts out his top six, right? Your top six is the heavy hitters, the Ole Misses, the LSUs of the world, the Miamis, the Florida States. Whenever you put out that level of top six, even though you fans still felt very confidently that there's no way the number one recruit in the state of Oklahoma is going to go anywhere but OU. It felt like a foregone conclusion. Yet here we are. Not being listed in his top six doesn't matter. He's an Oklahoma State Cowboy. So we've been talking ad nauseum. This Todd Grantham SEC NFL staff is doing some things out on the recruiting trail that we haven't ever really done. And, of course, there were some OU fans in the comments saying, well, look at this guy trying to pump up the orange and trying to get people fictitiously excited about ever taking over the in-state recruiting. Yet here we are. Here we are with the number one running back, number one linebacker, number one defensive lineman, number one overall in-state recruit. And you also, I think, got a very good offensive tackle in the process. You got a very good safety in the process that just so happens to be teammates at Owasso with Tajh Overton. Let's face it, years ago, this was never going to happen. And, of course, OU fans now, they had to find ample amounts of copium, much like Iowa fans over losing Bo Bissett. OU fans had copium flowing freely over why they didn't get Katie Batman Jones. Now you're seeing the same thing. The only way that Oklahoma State was able to get Tajh Overton is because of money. Okay, is it nice to know that Oklahoma State now has an NIL footprint that is at least adequate enough to entice some of the top players in the country? Absolutely. But does anybody out here have enough disillusionment to believe that Oklahoma State magically all of a sudden has an exorbitant amount more than OU when it comes to recruiting? They have it, right? Because they get all this SEC money. We hear all the time about the Big Ten and the SEC get more money than everybody else. Therefore, they're going to control recruiting like everybody else. I don't necessarily think so. We got the number one recruit in the state of Arkansas and Danny Beale III. And then we have the number one recruit in the state of Oklahoma, which is Tajh Overton. And coincidentally enough, they're both defensive linemen. We've heard over and over that the reason that the SEC is better than everybody else because the offensive linemen and the defensive linemen that they're able to get. They get bigger, stronger, faster guys than anybody in the SEC or the ACC could dream of getting. Those conversations are obviously starting to shift because even outside of the O-line, D-line perspective, in the Big 12 alone, you have all this shaking down at Oklahoma State, right? Colorado just had Travis Hunter win the Heisman, then they get a consensus 4-star, potentially even a 5-star quarterback to go to Colorado. Then BYU gets one of the top players in the country, 5-star quarterback. Houston, they get a 5-star quarterback. This is becoming more of a trend, I would say. Could this perhaps mean that the Big 12 is getting more respect? Yeah, very likely. But I think more importantly, this goes back to this staff coordinating everything from an NFL and SEC perspective. So instead of me just hooting and hollering, ranting and raving about how this is a NFL, SEC staff and they're operating just like that, now we're starting to see a little bit of proof. So it's not just some crazy dude rocking a bunch of orange, screaming cool stuff to try to make Oklahoma State look better. This is factual information. The state of Oklahoma has never really been reserved for the Cowboys. Call a spade. We'd grab the number 3, number 4, number 2 guys here and there. I think when you think back to Calvin Bundage and Trace Ford, and even recently getting Talon Shetron, that level of individual was able to come to Oklahoma State. You could throw Braeden Presley and Brendan Presley into this equation as well, meaning that the next step in this evolutionary process for the locking down of the state of Oklahoma is partially going to become with the decision of Braeden Presley. Now, I would also imagine that if OU could not capitalize on Kewan Jones being one of the greatest DBs to play at OU, they couldn't capitalize there. And now they're reeling a bit because they couldn't capitalize on grabbing Tajh Overton. I would assume that this means the full court press is going to be on Braeden Presley even more so now than ever. But I don't know that at the end of the day, that's going to be the end-all be-all because the same individuals that were responsible for helping recruit Katie Batman Jones and then his camp got fully entrenched in Stillwater. Those crews are also the ones responsible for helping recruit Tajh Overton to Oklahoma State. So now you got Trey McLaughlin and Carter Langendorfer, his teammate, out here with KD Batman Jones, with Aiden Martin, and all of these individuals are sending the love out that this is different now. What is happening in Stillwater, it's not just a simple conversational piece. This is not just a portion of Oklahoma State getting better. I think this is verification that Mike Gundy is, in fact, taking the CEO role, and he's allowing Todd Grantham and Ryan McNamara and Cap Beatty and Jules Montanar to do their own thing, to recruit their own way, to do their own thing, to install their own plays, to get absolute savages on the football field. One of our best individuals helping land some of these dudes was the person that told me in doing some 7-7 evaluations, we need to recruit more dogs. Instead of puppy dogs that we hope turn into dogs, we need to recruit absolute savages from the get-go. Instead of waiting on them to develop over 2 to 3 years, which is how Oklahoma State historically has been able to capitalize on the talent that we've been given. We would go get the 2-star Brandon Whedons. We would go get the 2-star Justin Blackmans, and we would turn them into All-Americans and NFL-level individuals. This is different. This is cornerstone pieces that you're adding to this roster. So you could throw the number out. Honestly, at this point in time, I don't necessarily think it matters all that much. Because even from a quarterback perspective, right? 247, Gabe Brooks, I believe was his name. He just did a write-up recently talking about Oklahoma State quarterback 3-star commit, Case Evans. And this was, 2 days after Case Evans' high school coach said if he went to X, Y, and Z school down the road that had all the lights, all the cameras, all the glitz, all the glamour, he would already be a 5-star candidate. From a physical in-the-pocket perspective, he's already got it figured out. He's not going to take a lot of risk when it comes to the developmental aspects. His throwing motion is squared away. His base is level. His platform's good. He can get in and out of the pocket. He can diagnose plays. He can call audibles. He can call shifts. So if he was at a bigger place or a bigger school that had more notoriety, he would already be a 5-star. And then what does he do? He starts dropping dimes at 7-on-7 tournaments, and now he has his own portion of a write-up and a recent 247 article talking about the best in Texas for 7-on-7 football. So maybe his high school coach is on to something. Maybe Case Evans is being disrespected because he's not at a big fancy place. He doesn't go to all the camps and do all the things 24/7 because he's about his business. He's not about all of the accolades. He's not all about all of the lights. And now that we're landing the number one recruit in the state of Arkansas, the number one recruit in the state of Oklahoma, one of the most underrated quarterbacks in all of the state of Texas, the number one recruit in the state of Arkansas. With all that being said, and BYU doing what they're doing, right, and other Big 12 schools having massive success in recruiting, could we be potentially looking at a time where the extra star ratings come in the Big 12 as well? I don't know. But the turning of the tide, it's nice to see that it's not just hyperbolic words being thrown into a microphone. This is substantive. When you land Danny Beale, when you land Katie Batman Jones and Trey McLaughlin and Carter Langendorfer and Aiden Martin, and now you get Tajh Overton, this is new territory for Oklahoma State. It's okay to say it. And it's okay to be appreciative of Mike Gundy for making the monumental moves of hiring Todd Grantham and Cap Dede and Ryan Osborne and Jules Montanar and even Doug Meacham. Because if you look at Case Evans and the things that we're seeing now and the words being said about him now, if they end up coming to fruition, then Doug Meacham is going to look like an absolute savant alongside Banks Bowen for helping unearth this level of a class. So again, numerically, we were just the number 19 ranked team in the country when it came to recruiting. I don't care what the number is. This is clearly, intentionally, showing a massive shift in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And I don't think we're done. We need some more things to happen. So since we just got the number one player in the state of Arkansas, perhaps that means there's some more coming down the way. You officially need to get in on the ticket getting action with the best in the ticketing industry, which is Game Time Tickets. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever decided like last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family, one of my favorite random moments was in 2011. We just peeled off the highway to head off to the Oklahoma State Mizzou game. Didn't talk about it, didn't discuss it, and it was one of the funnest experiences ever. Whether it's a game day or you suddenly realize that you want to be part of the game day or you want to be in the stands, Game Time Tickets have you covered. It's exactly where Game Time comes into play. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without unnecessary stress. With all of the money that you could save on tickets, you can splurge on more food, drinks, merchandise, or even invite a bigger group to come with you because game day is going to help make all of that possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, the first hit, the first punt, kick, whatever. They've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes all of the worry out of your buying. Game Time is the official ticket partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for exciting upcoming Major League Baseball games. Additionally, Game Time has last-minute tickets and zone deals for the biggest savings, like 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. The seat views are in the app, panoramic before you buy, so you know exactly where you're going to be. So go on ahead and take the guesswork out of you buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but of course, create that account, redeem that code, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time Tickets today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, you already know, guaranteed. So now that we've had all of the success in the recruiting department and, On 3 Sports, their crystal ball type of prognostication did have recently a shift for Tajh Overton choosing Oklahoma State. So obviously, dig back a little bit more, and we didn't see Danny Beale, number one defensive lineman and overall player in the state of Arkansas, coming to Oklahoma State. So perhaps is On 3 onto something here again with Evan Goodwin being the potential next in line to become a Cowboy. The number one offensive lineman tackle in the state of Arkansas 6'7", 325 pounds. Missouri has been a front runner for quite some time. A lot of SEC schools, a lot of ACC schools, Big Ten, it doesn't matter. Whenever you're 6'7", 325 pounds, and you operate the way that he does with the wrestling background that he has, you know he's going to be an absolute dog on the football field. Which, again, this is what Oklahoma State's been lacking over the years. We would get very high character dudes, which you absolutely have to have, but maybe perhaps we knew he needed to gain 45 pounds before he could be a contributing force on the starting lineup. Or maybe we knew his conditioning had to get X, Y, or Z, or he had to develop this skill set to change positions. We used to get a lot of those guys that we knew would take a couple years developmentally to become starters at the Power 4 level. Those times seem to be shifting. Those times seem to be changing. And if we could land 6'7", 325-pound offensive lineman, Evan Goodwin, this would be an unprecedented level of success in recruiting at Oklahoma State. And the reason I bring this up, because, again, we've got number 1 overall ranked player in the state of Oklahoma, number 1 D lineman, number 1 running back, number 1 linebacker, top safety or number 2 safety in the state of Oklahoma already committed. What we do not have is number 1 defensive end in the state of Oklahoma. That is Colton Yarbrough, who committed to Arkansas quite some time ago. And I remember being on the Hog Wild podcast talking about this and how Oklahoma State, Arkansas playing each other on the field is actually pretty daggone cool because these recruiting battles aren't going anywhere. We've had recruiting battles with Arkansas for years, even before our big moments in the Big 12 or their big moments in the SEC. This has always been a thing. It's always going to continue to be a thing. So now that we've almost officially locked down the state of Oklahoma for all of the top talent, what's missing is, of course, Braeden Presley, a.k.a. BP3, the 6'2", 290-pound defensive back that also plays wide receiver, punt returner, kick returner. We've seen his oldest brother become the all-time receptions leader in Oklahoma State history. His middle brother, Braeden Presley, came to Oklahoma State, wanted to do the Tyreek Hill running back kind of thing. Obviously, we tried to shift him to slot receiver somewhat prematurely. So he took that as a little bit of a slight, goes to Tulsa, and realistically played running back there a little bit, but they also moved him to slot receiver. So naturally, his positional shift to slot receiver became more open. Casey Dunn's not here. Wozniak's not here. So whatever conversation pieces were had then doesn't matter. It's time to bring BP3 home too. And I'm accentuating that because this is what OU fans are coping with right now. They didn't get KD. They didn't get, obviously, the number 1 ranked recruit in the state in Tajh. So now they're talking about, well, it's okay because we're going to get Braeden Presley anyways. And I would imagine, since they're licking their wounds a bit on in-state recruits, they're probably going to go hardcore after Braeden Presley, even more so than they were previously. So landing of Braeden Presley in Stillwater would be pretty catastrophic for OU. And then on top of that, you have Evan Goodwin. So now it's time for Danny Beale III to go to Evan Goodwin and say, listen, man, let On 3 be right. They were all right about Tajh Overton picking Oklahoma State, at least recently. And now it's gone from Mizzou to favoring Oklahoma State on 3. So let's just make this thing a real deal. Let's make Evan Goodwin a Cowboy. And Danny Beale can probably, likely, easily hit up Evan. I'm sure they probably had several conversations being to the top players in the state of Arkansas. It's time for him to reach out and say, Evan Goodwin, you need to become a Cowboy. You need to join the fold, be part of the new crew that is doing major things in the middle of America. And while he's at it, after Edwin Goodwin decides he's going to become an Oklahoma State Cowboy, they can team up and they can holler at Colton Yarbrough and say, listen, man, Arkansas is cool. Sam Pittman, their head coach, is from Oklahoma. So, I mean, naturally, he's going to be able to recruit the state pretty well. But Sam Pittman might be on borrowed time. We don't know. But what we do know is Danny Beale III decided to pick Oklahoma State. Evan Goodwin likely is going to hopefully pick Oklahoma State. So why not let Colton Yarbrough know the in-state takeover has begun? And with the tectonic plates right below Arkansas and Oklahoma shifting, why not gobble up the best players in both states in the same year, in the same class? So that way we can look back on this years from now and talk about how this was the biggest class in Oklahoma State history. At least the most important class. Again, we've garnered some of the top talent in the country occasionally, but we didn't have an overabundance of them, right? It's not like we were stacking the deck with number one here and number one there and number one here and number one there. This is new. This is yet another sign that whatever the disgruntlement is between the Board of Regents and Mike Gundy, at the end of the day, Mike Gundy did fire all of the coaches and bring all of these coaches in. And, he kind of let loose that he had a conversation with Nick Saban before making this hire. Nick Saban told him, in order for you to have the success you want to get back to the Jim Knowles level defenses that you had in 2021, you've got to hire a head coach of the defense. And you have to let him operate as a head coach of the defense. And then former Alabama defense coordinator, Todd Grantham, comes to Stillwater. And then we land Mordecai McDaniel, formerly of the SEC. J.K. Johnson was in the SEC. Jadavian Bradley was in the SEC. You start grabbing all of these top-notch dudes from the SEC, and you're like, okay, well, clearly this new staff is making an impact with guys they've recruited previously at stops like Florida and Mississippi State. So those guys that they recruited years ago, they now brought to Stillwater, and now they're hitting this recruiting trail, and they're having massive amounts of success. So once again, it's not just a random statement that this is an SEC and NFL staff. They're operating that way. They're recruiting that way. Their installation of plays is that way. Their technique and training is that way. So now it's just time to see it shift into having that level of a season in Stillwater, Oklahoma. The possibilities, I mean, you can't necessarily say they're endless, but if this continues, this can become an expectation. That if you're one of the top players in the state of Oklahoma, there's an expectation that you're going to have the opportunity to come to Oklahoma State. And don't get me wrong, OU did land Bo Bentley recently. They got another 4-star defensive lineman here a few days ago. So they're going to have some success. But Lincoln Riley opened this door. Years ago, Lincoln Riley felt like he could recruit California and Florida and Texas and Louisiana and wherever he wanted to. Therefore, why overly recruit the in-state dudes, which is precisely how we ended up with Talon Shetron. Because of that thought process, because of that mindset. And now, fast forward to landing guys like this, it's a new lay of the land. The landscape has shifted. And as Katie Batman Jones said in a tweet to an OU fan that said, oh, it must be all about the NIL, Oklahoma State must be spending big. KD said, no, it's just out with the old and in with the new. OU is the old and Oklahoma State is the new. And that's saying something because his dad was a Sooner. Out with the old, in with the new. I kind of like that mantra. And sticking with that mantra, Steve Lutz finally got the big man or the power forward that has the ability to shoot at 41% from the three-point line, and Lefteris Montzoukas. He is now finally on his way to Stillwater, Oklahoma to join his team. There was some international visa difficulties that popped up. And, of course, there was a natural conversation is, will this international visa thing become a problem for Oklahoma State, in particular, some of the Olympic-level sports? Obviously, it was more geared towards Lefteris Montzoukas becoming a Cowboy because, again, this is the dude that in 2023 was projected as the top 15 European best players for the NBA draft. He decided to play their version of professional ball overseas for a couple of years. Had some massive moments. I don't care who you are when you have somebody that's 6'10", shooting 41% from the three-point land. If you can teach him to bang bodies down low a little bit more, well, you're probably on to something successful here. So he's going to join 6'10", 265-pound Mekhi Ragland. He's going to join 6'10", 275-pound Ben Ahmed. And then I think we can all agree that we have some guys in Stillwater that have more than enough capability to teach, especially the big man position. Like our most recent assistant coach was lauded for his big man capabilities at his previous stops and having some centers and forwards be trained up and end up being draft picks. So now got that guy in Stillwater. You got Mekhi Ragland. You got Ben Ahmed. And now you have Lefteris Montzoukas. Does he potentially need some work down low, banging bodies? Absolutely. But essentially everything from 5 foot out, he already understands. He's good off the dribble. He's good in transition. He can obviously pull up and shoot. He can come off of the pick and roll pretty well. He runs good enough to be a big-time member of the Big 12. So Steve Lutz now has, with landing guys like this and getting all of this figured out, the expectations are now climbing. He made the NIT, won a couple games in the NIT tournament. So now the expectations climb. And by the way, he did that with a roster of just a bunch of defensive athletes that he knew that's what they were. We weren't going to shoot the ball exceedingly well. We probably weren't going to necessarily be the greatest half-court set team. Yet the progression over the season clearly indicated this team is figuring it out. This team is getting better. And that was a bunch of athletes that he got pretty late in the process because we hired him late in the process. And I think we can all agree what he put together and threw on the floor ended up being better than we've been seeing. Now, are we going to always kick ourselves for wasting the Cade Cunninghams, Marcus Smarts, the LeBron Nashes, the Markel Browns, Michael Cobbinses of the world under previous coaching staffs? Yes. But I think we can all agree that there's a little bit more anticipation, finally, for Cowboy basketball. And they recently announced they're doing something with the seating to make like privacy sections, semi-private sections. Is it going to cut down capacity a little bit? Probably. But we weren't necessarily putting 13,800 in there much anymore anyways. So if it cuts down to 13,100, that's probably just fine. You can probably still get that thing shaking and rocking and rolling like it used to under Eddie Sutton anyways. And again, yeah, those LeBron Nash, Marcus Smart, Markel Brown, Michael Cobbins teams. I remember I was at Galgraba for one of those moments where they took down number 1 or number 2 overall KU in Galgraba. It was pretty crazy. It was 13,000. So it can happen. Even somewhat recently, it's happened. Brad Underwood was able to garner a couple of major crowds. But this team clearly understands that Cowboy basketball means something to Steve Lutz. That Eddie Sutton signature on the court means a lot to Steve Lutz. Living up to the defensive expectations in Stillwater mean a lot to Steve Lutz. The recruiting has always kind of been there. Travis Ford was able to recruit. Mike Boynton was able to recruit. Travis Underwood was able to recruit. Now it looks like Steve Lutz is able to do the same. Yeah, because now you got Ryan Crotty, too, with Lefteris Montzoukas. You got 2 dudes, one of them 6'10" and one of them 6'5", that both shoot over 41% from the 3-point line. Pretty exciting times for Cowboy basketball. It's a pretty exciting time in general, especially now with this visa thing kind of worked out, because from golf and tennis, we also get a large number of our best players internationally in those sports as well. So if we can get this Lefteris Montzoukas thing figured out from a visa perspective, surely we can get it figured out for golfers and tennis players as well, which is obviously a massive breath of fresh air in Cowboy country. What a great day. So much so that we're going to try to go live either later this evening or sometime this weekend with one of the people instrumental in helping to recruit the state of Oklahoma on behalf of Oklahoma State. Pretty big deal. And, one of those shout outs has got to go towards a running back coach in the state of Oklahoma that used to be a Cowboy that we've had on this program. It's a great time to be a Cowboy. It's a great time in recruiting. All right, y'all. That's all we're going to have for this one. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State, because you could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it, dislike if you didn't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast people out there, you're everything that makes this work. I appreciate you. Do what you do. Go hit some stars and leave some reviews. All right, y'all. Later, my taters.